both Republicans and Democrats have bought into this idea that we should keep paying Mexico to stop migrants who are fleeing these drug crime wars in various levels, whether in Honduras, El Salvador, etc. Like, how has that impacted Mexican society? And I would imagine it would feel like there are now, more precarious people left in precarious situations who are even still ripe for being swept up into cartel worlds or drug running, etc. But anyway, I don't know if you have thoughts on that whole process.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think if you look at the migrant crises, and there's been, 3 migrant crises, crises, and I'll give that, put that in inverted commas, but 3 migrant crises in the last 7 years. You had 2014 under Obama, and that was when it was all the children. Then you had the 2018-19 under Trump and the massive caravans, and that was when it got really big. And then just a couple of years later, you got like 2021 again, right as Biden comes in. So this is big things. Now, a lot of this is, I think, in Central America, you've seen a real meltdown, particularly in Honduras. That's been the worst. You've covered this. You know that a huge amount of the numbers are going to speak to people from Honduras. There's a bunch of other countries. You've also got El Salvador, Guatemala, now Nicaragua, because that country is really cracking down hard, becoming very authoritarian, and people are fleeing that. But Honduras has seen a real meltdown. I think Honduras is perhaps after Venezuela's, also seen a lot of emigration, and Venezuela's in a bad way. Yes. But Honduras has been in a real meltdown, and so that's not talk about a narco state. In Honduras, the president of Honduras himself has been accused in a U.S. courts of being involved in drug trafficking. The president of the country, and then people are very extremely violent there. People fleeing that. Now, as you say, these last 3 migrant crises, Obama and then Trump and then Biden did the same thing. They went to Mexico and said, you stop the Central Americans coming. We'll give you money. We're your biggest trading partner. And Mexico, all 3 presidents in Mexico, happy to do this. Sadly, and anybody in the White House, and I think that's a sad reality. I don't see that changing soon.
Right.
It's a sad situation.
Right, and you have Kamala Harris saying, "Don't come," and she, and there is an effort to pour money into root causes, as they say, quote unquote root causes. It's like, well, we're going to fund this school for girls here in El Salvador, and that sort of reminds me of the school for girls in Afghanistan. It's like, what are you actually doing here? Who are you trying to save? What is this about? And you started this originally by saying the United States doesn't call these gangs and cartels terrorists, and on the one hand, looking at how the war on terror has gone, you're like, thank God they're not calling them terrorists. And then number 2, you're like, but at least there's way more attention. If these cartels were Muslim, would we have rooted them out by now? Probably not. But
I think the US. I mean, the idea that the US could do drone strikes anyway and knock out the cartels is also a fantasy, because there's just so many of these. It's not like you've got like one little group of Al Qaeda. I mean, you've got hundreds of thousands of people in Mexico working for the cartels. Maybe more than. But one thing's interesting about Kamala Harris and saying that, and I think the critiques of that in the United States gets back to, how about the gun issue? How about that as a start? How about if you say, okay, I understand that the reality is that the United States is not going to, the level of refugees potentially can come over the southern border is very large.
Yeah.
But if you argue, okay, we're going to try and resolve the problems in these countries so they don't have to flee. How about beginning with that gun trafficking? And people see, talk, and I saw also. I mean, I wondered with Alejandro Ocasio-Cortez on this, and I saw her tweeting about back in the 80s they were supporting regimes, and that's true. But how about right now in 2021? What's happening right now? I mean, as we speak right now, there's guns flowing over the border, and that Congress has got the power to change this. So why is people not saying, all with the war on drugs and with the drug consumption, saying, okay, we've got to take responsibility. We can't allow this amount of drug money to flow south. How about we've got to give treatment to all of the addicts and 90% of addicts in the United States do not receive treatment. So how about like confronting this stuff right now, rather than, and maybe that rather than just saying, like you say, create a school for girls in Honduras, and it's like really going to change the fundamental problems in that country.
That's such a good point. I also think that sort of leftists can be a little bit lazy and progressives because we keep on pointing to the 80s, as, okay, well, what about when we supported this dictator, or what about the Contras, or what about this and that? And you're right that it continues today, in the money and in the weaponry, keeps on flowing, and we don't need to reach back as far as the 80s. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.